We are live. Hello, hello, people.
Yay!
Hey, hello, hello, Lorena.
Hi everyone.
Yeah, how are you, Lorena? How is your day today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, Elena?
Oh my gosh, it's a cool day, so bright, so warm, real April. I love it, and so much happens right now in my head and in my life, in my business. So it's busy, busy day, but it's beautiful. What
Well,
about you? How is your day? Very busy?
same thing. Busy, busy. Time flies when you're having fun. It's one of those things where I blink and it's like, oh my goodness, it's already lunchtime. I blink, oh my god, it's already 6 o'clock. You're so consumed in everything that you're doing, and you're trying to stay focused and consistent. And but time flies, and as long as
Yeah,
I'm having this much fun, I'm all for it. Let it fly. You just have to make sure
beautiful.
that,
Yes,
yeah, you have to make sure to stop and smell the flowers.
beautiful. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So let's talk today about co-living. And I know this video will stay in our community for the future. And I just wanted to say thank you, Lorena. Thank you, everyone who watching us right now, who will be watching us in the future, because it means so much, not just for me, but I believe because co-living is huge trend, and many people are interested to get to know more about co-living. Whoever we are, investors, tenants, landlords, lawyers, property managers, right? It's pretty much new, but it's huge trend for all of us. And this is our first live in our community. And I'm going to run it really regularly, and I believe my guests will be different people who has any relationship with co-living. So today is my guest, my friend Lorena Ortiz. She is a real estate investor and co-living investor, and I'm proud to have you today here, Lorena. Thank you so much.
Oh, Elena, thank you so much. I'm super excited to be your first guest in your lives. And once again, I'm going to echo exactly what you said. Thank you to everybody that's joining us now live, whoever's joining us in the future. Co-living is the future, right? And it's a great solution for many people. And not everybody is educated or has had the opportunity to explore or speak to people that are knowledgeable in the space, and it could really make a significant impact. And it doesn't matter who you're servicing, because it does have so many targeted audiences, right? You can
Yeah.
have co-living for people that are in financial distress, or
Mhm.
simply for people that are just by themselves, single, that are looking
Yep.
for a sense of community, or people that are traveling and they don't want to be by themselves, they want to be together in a shared space but still have some privacy. um, we've always been so familiar with like college
Mm.
roommates, right? When people go to college and they share housing, there's so many opportunities there that it's great to be able to share that with the world, right? And see how we
Yep.
can actually expand and be able to provide resources to so many that
Yep.
actually can benefit from them. So thank
Yep.
you.
Right. Right. Yeah, I agree. So many opportunities and so many ways to be creative with co-living, and not only for investors, but for tenants. So in the future, I will bring people who has experience as a landlord for clubhouses, people who has experience as landlords for veteran houses. I'm going to bring lawyers who knows this topic. I'm going to bring people who just love this idea living in community. So please,
Absolutely.
guys, stay with us, enjoy this community, and enjoy my guest. And Lorena, actually, she has experience with two strategies in co-living. She knows how to run sober house, and she knows how to run co-living property for traveling professionals,
That's
right?
correct. That's correct.
Per-
I wouldn't give
Perfect,
myself
Lorena.
so much. I wouldn't give myself so much credit on the sober living house, because we tried to do that one, and we had to quickly pivot. But we understand now what the needs are. So in the near future, we're able to provide those resources if the right partner comes along, right? If we're able to collaborate with the right people, definitely a way to help. Whatever our business, whatever we can do in our business that can service the community, we're down for. We're open ears, right? We're always willing to invest. We will always operate co-living spaces, but we were
Mhm.
always willing to invest because we're operators, but we're also investors, right? So
Yep.
if we're not operating it ourselves, we definitely are open to expanding and invest
Yep.
in in sober living spaces. But now
Yes,
we
I
know what to
agree.
look for, right?
Now you know more. So it's okay. It's okay if you don't have massive experience with sober living houses. You still have this experience. And I would like to talk with you. So I don't have experience with sober living. I have so far only one property. I just joined this wonderful real estate investment world just a year ago, and I just bought my first property a couple months ago. But I'm on my way, so I don't have any experience with sober. But I have experience with co-living with pot split, and someday I can maybe share my experience wider. But today I would love to ask you about how did you start sober? What did you what do you know? What do you need to know? What kind of maybe regulation? What people should pay attention on if they want to start sober house?
Yes. So it's a great question. It's a great need, right, in society, not just in the US, but across the world. There are so many people that live and suffer with addiction that and that
Mhm.
are in different stages of the addiction process and recovery, that there's a lot of opportunity to be able to get them back into society and reintegrate them into society. I've had personal experience, unfortunately, through family and friends who have suffered from the addiction. And
Yeah.
when we were looking at our investments, we were already partnered for um, a pad split, a co-living space in
Mhm.
Houston for traveling nurses. And
Mhm.
an opportunity came to us for another property nearby, and we're like, oh, maybe we could put it in pad split. That was the original intent. But then we realized that that wasn't going to be the right strategy for that property.
Mhm.
And understanding that sober living was one of the things that we were inclined to do, we decided to
Mhm.
explore that option before we purchased the property. So we did
Mhm.
reach out to the community of investors and try to seek others with the expertise, because we personally didn't have expertise on
Mhm.
operations, on the management, on how things needed to, function in a home first, when you're in recovery,
Mhm.
the different stages. And so there was a lot of research in that sense of trying to understand the different tiers, different types of co-live, different sober living houses that you can have. There's different levels. So there's level one,
Mhm.
2, 3, and 4, and really 4 is the one where you're really still heavy deep in recovery. You're still
Yep.
needing to go through medicine administration. You need to have nursing care. You need attention from physicians to kind of help you through that process, and that you need special licenses for. um, so we were not at that stage. We wanted to start from the bottom up, right, and kind of scale from there and see and
Mhm.
understand the process. And then level 1 and 2 are really when you're already at you've already gone through the rehab, you're already discharged from like a recovery center, and you're starting to
Mhm.
reintegrate back into society. um, so you don't have the needs of actually having to have all these special licenses, right? You obviously
Okay.
need to have the right insurance in place, which is usually managed by the operator. You need to have house managers in place, which usually are people that have gone through the program, maybe in other houses.
Mhm.
They're advancing far enough that they're actually able to operate the house itself. So they're called like house managers, and
Yeah.
they are able to help with making sure that everybody in the house are following the rules, that everybody's doing their chores, because
Yep.
that is how you get back into a
Mhm.
normal life, right? You ensure that
Yep.
you have to follow a list of chores. You're responsible for all of the things. So really, when we were speaking to the operators and we were looking for operators, they told us, you're charging per bed and you're including utilities,
Mhm.
right? You have to include like regular drug testing to make sure that everybody's clean in the home. um, you have to be able to have resources nearby to the home, because a lot of times people that are coming out of recovery, they don't have
Mhm.
vehicles to transfer themselves from home to work or rehab or church or whatnot.
Mhm.
So you need to be able to have easy transportation, maybe
Yep.
churches or religious services available, food pantries, etc.
Okay.
So there's a lot of resources that you want to have in place based on the demographics that you're serving, right? So this one specifically
Okay.
was for sober living. So we are looking for specific resources that will be able to benefit. So okay, maybe
Mhm.
they don't have a car, but maybe you can get work with organizations or if you set your business up as a non-for-profit, you can get donations as well and build things, to provide the members in the home an opportunity to have bicycles, maybe to ride to work, or so that
Mhm.
way they can start transporting themselves and having a more sense of independence. But essentially there's a
Mhm.
lot of rules that are put in place for the members to actually follow and be able to be consistent, and the house manager obviously is the one in charge to ensure that all of these rules are being followed, um,
Mhm.
etc. Right? So uh,
Yep.
that's how we got started. We spoke to an operator. They told us, that it was a perfect fit. So we said, okay, we're going to go ahead and close on this property. We purchased it. We said, we'll go ahead and buy the property, and we'll give you an opportunity to operate it, because we don't have
Mhm.
experience in operations of sober living. And so we needed somebody to come in with that knowledge. And that was that. So we kicked off. We purchased a
Okay.
property in
Yeah.
October of
I
2023 and
okay.
opened it in December of 2023. Yeah.
Oh, I can imagine that you had so much to do before to start listing. Okay, let's start from the step one. What you need to do first, where you need to go. What do you need any permits, any, I mean, legal permits? What departments do you need to contact first? Local departments, state departments, right? What do you
Right.
need to do from the legal part? Maybe
Right.
any medical facilities you have to contact to fight right people. So what should be people first step to find to start sober
You
house business process?
you definitely need to find a property. You need to do your market analysis. That's like step
Okay.
one. Okay,
Mhm.
if you know that that you want to provide housing for folks that are in sober living and to help them in the recovery, regardless of the state, with whatever level it is that you're working in, the focus is that you need to do your market analysis and you need to research
Okay.
ensuring that the right resources are available. You want to have recovery centers nearby, you want to have hospitals nearby, you want to have transportation nearby, like within a mile, public
Okay.
transportation, churches,
Mhm.
like I said, food pantries. Those are just standard resources, right?
Okay.
You want to make
Mhm.
sure that there not just one recovery center, but that there's actually several, maybe meth clinics or rehab centers, um, etc. Right, to ensure that
Mhm.
you're going to be able to market to those areas and be able to service them once they're coming out of recovery. So if you're looking at a
Okay.
level one or a level two, which is where I had the experience in, that is where I would get
Mhm.
started, is start evaluating, do your own market analysis so that way you understand where the needs are. Contact, right? The next step would be is like contact the local sober living houses in that area and see
Mhm.
what their needs are, what are they finding. Once you connect with other sober living homes, Operators
Mhm.
are more than ready, willing, and able to help guide you and connect with
Mhm.
you, because a lot of times either they're in an overflow or you're going to be in an overflow, and you're going to need to be able to work with others in the community that are able to support the need. So if you know that you don't have a bed, then you can contact someone locally and say, hey, I have a person that has a need. Do you
Mhm.
have a bed available for them? Right?
Yep.
And vice versa. If they have an overflow and they have, there's no more beds, they can transition
Mhm.
that person out to your home. So there's
Mhm.
always
Mhm.
there always a wealth of information that they can provide you. So it's contacting them. Do your research. Don't just jump on a property because you think it's okay, or decide, okay, I'm just going to do sober living for women, or just sober
Mhm.
living for men.
Yep.
You need to determine what the demand is in the area. Contact the rehab centers in the area, and understand the price point, what is included and what they're offering, right? So that way, when you
Yep.
are
Yep.
when you are doing the underwriting for your properties, you can understand what essentially is included, what the fee is per person. When you're doing level ones and level two, really, there's the way that you're going to get paid is getting paid by the actual member that's staying in the house, right?
Mhm.
A lot of times there's grants that can be offered to them, so you want to be knowledgeable with the different grants, or sponsorships that can be given to them, because they're
Mhm.
entering recovery. So you want to be able to provide those resources to anybody that's coming into your house to help them, because they may not
Okay.
have funds for the first few months, and you're not collecting from the government. The government will pay housing for higher levels of care, but not for like level ones or two, because you're supposed to be working and be able to work at that point. So you need to seek grants or sponsorships to help you cover those fees, or that, because they're self-pay, right? So
Mm.
if you're coming out of rehab, they don't necessarily have money right away. So you need to be able to provide them a resource that they will pay. The agency will send the money directly to the property, right? That's offering the sober living, to sponsor them for a month or two while they get
Mhm.
get back on track, and start looking for a job.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I
Those are
just
like the
wanted to say. Yeah, oh, Lorena, I'm so sorry. Just wanted to say for those guys, I see we have audience. For those who just joined us today, our conversation with Lorena Ortiz about her experience running a sober house. She has experience with two co-living strategies. She's as an investor, as an landlord. She ran uh, sober house, and she moved sober house into co-living for traveling professionals. So far we discussing with her experience with sober houses, how to start, what investors should pay attention on, what kind of regulation, what kind of local nuances we need to understand. Okay, Lorena, thank you so much. So
Of course,
understand,
of
so
course,
due
of course,
diligence, understand of
absolutely.
location.
Understanding the location. And then, of course, the other opportunity that I truly want to make note is really vet your operator, right?
Mhm.
Don't just take their word for it. Like, understand, like, their track record on the operations of a sober living house. Get referrals or recommendations for that operator, so that way you can actually make the right decision as far as who you are placing to run a house and operate a house that has so many different lives at stake, right? It's a very
Okay.
big, it's a very,
Mhm.
very big responsibility, and I don't take it lightly. I don't take it lightly, and nobody else should, right? Because these are people's
Yep.
lives. They're either in a road to recovery for good, or if you're not operating the home correctly, you're going to relapse, and you're going to end up back in rehab, or in a worse situation, right? You could end up
Mhm.
in jail.
Mhm.
You could end up dead, unfortunately. There's just so many different things that can happen if you do relapse. So you want to make sure that you have a good operator in place that truly understands the functions of a sober living house, and that is going to be able to put the right house managers in place. Because
Mhm.
if they're not and especially if they're not local to the area, you need to make sure that you have the right resources in place, so that way they can go ahead and operate your house successfully, and you have a healthy
Correct.
living environment for everybody that's staying in the
I
house, you
see.
know.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Couple practical questions. You
Of
mentioned
course.
operator. You mentioned we need to contact other sober living houses around in the area. Okay, couple very practical questions. What are the sources we need to use to find other sober living houses in the area? Because I suppose, again, I don't have any experience with sober living, but I suppose this information could be kind of little private. We cannot just Google sober house, right? Because people
You
want,
can.
it's very specific. You can't, right?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes,
interesting.
absolutely.
Cool.
Yes, you definitely can. There's you're able that's what I did, right? And I did that also in connection with other sober living investors, on operators who told me and guided me, Lorena, contact folks, see which ones are in your area, and you can look for sober living houses, transitional homes, etc. And you can actually look them up on a Google map, and they will show you where they're located. Sometimes you can look
Mm,
for recovery, just very simple way to go, which is possibly one of the ways that I would move forward in the future, uh, more than even sooner, probably, than even partnering with someone to operate one,
mhm,
is investing in one where we could actually have a company that focuses on um, sober living recovery, and we just rent the
mm,
house out to them, because they have all of the expertise on how to operate it, what the regulations are in the area. I've found many organizations that what they do is they create, they may be nationwide organizations, and they create
mhm,
chapters local to this, to this in the states and the cities across the country. So if you're
mhm,
able to identify local chapters to the areas of where you want to invest and focus your sober living on, you can actually reach out to the president, or the contact representative for that local chapter, and be able to say, hey, I want to invest in sober living, and I want to be able to help the community. I see that you have these programs. I would love to see how we can work together. They would give
mhm,
me specifically the types of homes that they're looking for, and the criterias, and then I can, we can work out the numbers of what that looks like, and then I can go ahead out as an investor, purchase a property, and then assign, give it to them for management. I have nothing to do with any of the operations. I'm literally just renting a house to them, but I know that
mm,
it's being used for sober living, and many organizations do that. So if I want to be part of the cause and help with a solution, that would possibly be my next way to enter, versus getting an
mhm,
operator to do it and partnering directly. I would rather work with the expert in the industry,
mhm,
and know that I'm helping make a difference without having to be so involved in the, in the logistics of
mhm,
the actual home. It can take a toll on you. You have to have a very special personality to work in the space when it comes to sober living, just because of
yeah,
all the dynamics and the intricacies that come along with it. Once again, it's not for everybody, but if you want to make an impact and you want to make a difference, that would be my number one recommendation, is to look for a resource of that type.
yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Lorena. And another question. You mentioned operators. So I suppose you really needs very specific property management, right? Or operator company, how you call it? Property, still property management?
I call them operators. They're
Okay,
sober living
okay.
operators.
where we should find, where we can find them. Either any specific resources, any specific organization that could refer us to them.
I, in all honesty, I had reached out to a community of real estate investors, and so many focus on so many different areas. So that's where I did my search. Like I did my
Mhm.
search in a real estate community, reaching out for sober living operators that that had experience, and that's how I connected. Not
Okay,
necessarily the best way, because not necessarily it wasn't the best way. I just wasn't prepared to vet them correctly because it was our first
right,
sober living property, right? So I didn't,
right.
we didn't really know what exactly to look for, because
Hmm.
it was a monster. It was a monster of a project. And
I know.
honestly, you need to, you need to really understand the space to understand what you're looking for in an operator. So
Yeah.
you can, if somebody wants to do it and they, and they want to look for operators, I would look for current, look into those local chapters that I mentioned before, because a lot of times they want to open their own sober living homes, because they've gone, the local chapter leaders in these organizations have gone through the program themselves. So they are sober
Hmm.
living, they're recover, they're recover, they have been in recovery, and they've successfully um, gone through the program. And their next step is, now they're managing a whole chapter, like a whole city of resources for sober living. They want to
Hmm.
open up their own, and they know how those operations work. So you can actually
Hmm.
reach out to them, and they will provide you resources. So I honestly would reach out to organizations that run sober living, and see if they have anyone that you might be able to work with and may be interested.
I see. You mean organization, something like non-profitable?
Yes, there's profit and nonprofit, but in all honesty, um, they're the ones that have all the resources. They
Hmm.
know, they have all the knowledge. They have all the people. They've grown and developed folks from different stages of the recovery program, and gotten them to, to chapter leaders, right, to run the whole city and multiple houses. So sometimes they want to no longer do it for an organization, they want to do it for themselves. So you can actually
Hmm.
work with them, right, and they're able to provide you resources.
Hmm. Perfect. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you so much, Lorena.
of
Guys, for
course.
those who just joined us, we are here, our discussion with Lorena Ortiz about her experience with sober house business. Lorena, what we need in terms of law? Do we need any permission from health department or something like this? Any specific regulation related to co-living?
Right. So when it comes to co-living, every city, every county, they have their own regulations. So you always
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to look into the local regulations for housing. However, it is very important to also know that you you sober living, right? Folks that are going through the program, they're a protected class. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of protection for them. You just need to make sure that that the zoning is
Mm-hmm.
approving for the type of operations that you're going to be having, and it all depends on the
Mm-hmm.
level of care that you're providing in that home. So a level one or
Yep.
a level two, they're very basic, right? Level two, you still need to be able to have the administration of a drug that is
Mm-hmm.
needed, right? But that has to be managed by the house manager. When you're at a level one, there's no drug administration. There is just
Mm-hmm.
regular day to day, wake up, do your chores, go to work, do your chores, live in a healthy environment, be productive.
Mm-hmm.
So those needs are, you're just renting, you're allowing them to stay in a room, and you're really not calling them residents, you're calling them members, right? Because you don't, you're offering a program,
Mm-hmm.
you're offering a
Yeah.
program for
Yeah.
those that are staying in the house, so they don't abide by the regular lodging regulations, um, like other co-living houses do.
Mhm. Yeah. And I suppose really every state has own regulation. We still need to be
Correct.
very careful because, and I believe, Lorena, you're a hero because to buy first investment property as a sober living, you're really so brave. Because
Thank you.
I have nothing. I know nothing about sober living. Now I know something because you shared with me. Before I knew nothing, but I really suppose you need to know so much because really it's very specific tenants. They're protected. They are very fragile. They need lots of care, and it's so difficult. Okay, we have already one question in the chat. I will ask this question in the future because I still have some questions around about sober living. So, guys who are watching us, our discussion about Lorena's experience running sober living house, please, if you have any questions related to organization, legal part, or any questions to her, please don't hesitate, ask her in the chat. Okay, so how did you how did you do your search for property for sober living? Do you know now something more? What we should know while we checking the properties? Do we need really to transform all common areas into bedrooms, like for part split, for example? Or we don't? People need to have living rooms and dining rooms?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the question. So, absolutely, when you're having a sober living home, you're you're able to provide either rooms with single beds, or you can provide multiple beds in each room. You also need to have common areas because you want to be able to provide them a sense of community, right? So you
Yeah,
want to be able to
yeah.
give them shared spaces where they can work together. Um, the kitchen, the dining room, living room. We even had set up in the garage like several tables in case they wanted to have, community meetings in there, that they wanted to
Mhm.
bring in others to help. We were planning on doing some garden beds in the backyard, so that way they can help and maybe grow their own vegetables, giving them additional tasks to help them grow and develop themselves. So you definitely want to be able to provide them shared spaces, but you also want to give them a sense of privacy, not necessarily a whole bunch of it, right? You need to have cameras
Mhm.
inside the home, in common areas, to make sure that you
Mhm.
you can make sure that everything is okay in the house. You um, you don't offer locks on the doors. Like, there's no actual, you have knobs, but there's no actual locks, right? You can't
Mm.
lock the doors in the bedrooms in case someone needs to come in, and you have a limited sense of privacy, not a lot, right?
Ah, I
Limited.
understand why. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
I
you need to
understand
have,
why.
each person needs to have a personal safe where they can
Mhm.
keep, with code, their medications, if they're under any medications and they have to stay
Mhm.
next to them. You need, so what we did was, we purchased an 8 bedroom, sorry, it was a 6 bedroom 4 bathroom home. We converted it to an 8 bedroom 4 bath. Each of the bedrooms had 2 beds, 2 nightstands. They had plenty of storage space, um, and a lamp and a digital safe. That's what each, they were dressed. We needed to make sure that there were bed bug covers on all of the mattresses, because a lot
Yep,
of times, that can be an issue, especially in that type of home. So, we,
yep.
we put double full size beds, and two full size beds on each of the bedrooms. We wanted to give them comfort.
Mhm.
Um, and like I said, we went from a 6 bedroom to an 8 bedroom, and if each bedroom was having two, were for two people each. That's the way that we were accommodating the house. The house was fully furnished, like an Airbnb, so it was a fully stocked kitchen,
Mhm.
uh, with a
Mhm.
washer, dryer, refrigerator. You need to ensure that you give the proper storage space to each member in the house. So if you're looking at a
Mhm.
refrigerator, it's about a shelf per person, and then
Okay.
half a shelf of freezer space per person. So things that you would want to look in when you're purchasing a home for sober living or co-living period is making sure that you have enough space for refrigeration, for storage
Mhm.
space, cabinets, maybe have um, a cabinet per room, if you're going to be having different
Mhm.
rooms, or if there's more than one person in a room, then put maybe cabinet room 1A and room 1B, right? So if you have more than
Okay.
one person in a room, each person has their own designated space to store their personal items, etc. And that could be, with lock keys, so nobody can take other people, because
Mhm.
sometimes that can happen, right? In any type of space. Oh, this looks interesting, and then they'll just take it and use it. But essentially, that is where you what you would do is, you just try to give them their space, and then but
Mhm.
they build the community from it.
I see. So you mean you had two people in one room?
Two people in one
Yes.
room. Yeah, that's
And this
correct.
is
Two people.
common practice. This is common practice, right?
Yes, some
Okay.
people, some rooms, and depending on the housing, right? So you have to understand your market. You need to understand who you're servicing, right? we
Yep.
we were in a different area. We weren't going to be charging a lot of money. It wasn't a like an A plus area, right? We're looking at, you have to understand who you're going to be servicing. There are clients, if you think about it, uh, folks with a lot of resources that have a lot of funds to pay for sober living of their family members or friends,
Mm-hmm.
maybe live in Miami or California, New York, and
Mm-hmm.
they can have a house on the beach with a pool, with a chef, exercise
Mm-hmm.
rooms, etc. You could actually rent out one entire bedroom to that member, but it includes
Mm-hmm.
additional resources such as yoga, swimming, beach, meals prepared daily for you, therapy, counseling, all these additional services, and they could charge $15,000 a month per person, right? Because you are including
Mm-hmm.
all these additional resources and you can afford them. When you're talking about, um, if the area that we were servicing, we're literally
Mm-hmm.
looking at providing a safe place for them to be able to come home and sleep, stay clean, have a positive reinforcement, with their community, because they're all trying to support each other and grow together. But we're not providing a pool or
Yep.
therapy, etc. It's a different level and category of service demographics that we're serving. So our fees are a lot less than what others are
Mm-hmm.
offering. So in order for things to make sense and to still be able to make a difference, two people per room
Mm-hmm.
was appropriate for us. But we could have
Yep.
even put more people in a room. Like when somebody else was looking at the house to possibly take it over, they were thinking about putting like two bunk beds in one room. So
Mm-hmm.
that would have been four. And they're smaller, there were smaller
Oh.
beds, they're bunk beds. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to understand that, and you also need to pay attention to the amount of restrooms that you're providing per the amount of members, right? So we're looking at about one restroom. Pat Split has, it's like one restroom for every four
Yep.
rooms, correct? So
Yep. Yep.
we try to give more a higher ratio to that, but um at minimum, that's where we would base off on for original
Mm-hmm.
setup, you know.
I see. So what
Yeah.
size of house you think is optimal? How many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, maybe square footage? Something what you notice from your experience for sober
I you
living.
know I wouldn't go with anything under 20 2,200 square feet. I think that would be too small. Anything under that. If you're
Mm-hmm.
able to provide a home that has 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, I think that's a great number to start with, and take it from there. It's always also, you have to obviously take into consideration the numbers. And if there is, like, the only reason we were able to expand to an 8 bedroom is because our house has had a huge game room on the second floor,
Mm-hmm.
and we added 2 rooms in that huge game room, and we still had areas and space to add a hallway for folks to be able to move around the second floor. So there's plenty of
Mm-hmm.
space. So you want to make sure that people are comfortable, they don't feel overcrowded. It all depends on the amount of people that you're planning on putting in the house, and when you're doing your numbers, it just needs to make sense as well, right? Can
Mm-hmm.
you put 2 people in a room, or do you need to stick with one? What type of services are you going
Mm-hmm.
to be providing, in your home? Do you want to have a pool in your home? Do you want to use have the liability for that? There's just a lot,
Yep.
depending on demographics and the the demographics of the community that you want to serve, and the numbers. You just have to see what makes more sense for you, and for the
Yeah.
services you're
I,
providing.
I see. I see. Regarding pool, for example, when we are checking uh, houses for bud split, for co-living for young professionals, pool is one of taboos, HOA in pool, because really it's such a high level of liability, of responsibility. I would never do pool in any kind of co-living house, really, in any. It's really high
Interesting.
risk.
Have you thought about, because I know a lot of times in co-living, especially for traveling professionals, they look for the
Mhm.
additional amenities. So what other, if not a pool, what other types of amenities do you look to offer in your co-living spaces, right?
Yeah, yeah,
A lot
yeah. It
of times they
depends
look,
on strategy. It depends on strategy, right?
right.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know that I have a friend who's going to start up a co-living that's all wellness based, right? So she
Mm,
wants to do so I'm actually putting her in contact with somebody else that's focused in wellness, but she does retreats, and she wants to be able to provide spaces to do yoga and saunas and all that in the co-living space. So once again, it all depends on the demographic and the folks that you're trying to service. And if you find the right group and you're able to really give them what they're looking for, then
hmm.
perfect. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yep, yep. I believe really co-living it's great model to create win-win for any kind of model you will pick. Yep,
Amen
thank
to
you so
that.
much, Lorena. I have such
Of
a
course.
million questions. It's already 40 almost 5 minutes, and we have one question in the chat. How did you transform from sober living to co-living? I just wanted to small notice. Actually, sober is co-living as well. This is one of the type of
Correct.
co-living property. Yep. But
Correct.
Lorena has experience. She started sober living house and she moved into co-living for professionals, for traveling professionals. It
Correct.
will be our topic for next conversation because it's another wide type of co-living business. Another wide
Absolutely.
topic.
It's great. And once again, it's co-living, and I think we've made a very big point here. There's so many different ways and avenues to explore co-living space, right? Our need
Yeah.
of transitioning to traveling workers from sober living was the need, because our operator just went bad. It was a really bad situation, and in any business, you have to know how to pivot. You have to be open. You can't just get stuck on the problem. You need to be able to pivot quickly to be able to move and be successful. If you get stuck, you're not going to move forward. So what we ended up doing, since we had gone bad with our operator, we pivoted quickly and we said, okay, we're going to start providing houses. We spoke with one of our really good friends in our real estate community, and he said, Lorena, put your rooms on Airbnb while you start transitioning and figure out what you're going to do. And we did. We started putting our property on Airbnb by rooms, and we started renting them out to whoever needed a room. So we
Yep.
took in a couple with an infant that was living out of their truck because they didn't have enough money to come into an apartment. So I was able to give a master bedroom, rent out a master bedroom to a couple with their infant. There was another single mother that needed to move because she was getting evicted and she didn't have enough money to pay a full month. So she was able to pay week by week. So the flexibility of our leasing options, we're able to put
Mhm.
her and her daughter in a safe space. And we are in an
Yeah.
industrial area, so it was easy for us to get the traveling workers just looking for a space nearby, and that just kind of built up. Now at this
Mhm.
point, because it's very important to focus and hone in on a niche, is traveling workers,
Mhm.
right? That's who we're really able to service. We're close to a lot of refineries, oil companies. We have Exxon and Mobil and uh,
Mhm.
multiple companies near our home within 10 minutes that folks can actually, they're traveling in constantly. And so that
Mhm.
is where we just pivoted it and moved our model into that, right? And
Yep.
like you said, a
Yep.
complete different conversation, but it was a quick
Yep.
pivot because you need to be able to pivot um, to make your business work and be successful. So
Yeah.
amen for the pivot.
Thanks. Thanks, Laura. Okay, Lorena, I would really would love to have another live with you in few weeks. Let's talk about your next experience. Let's talk about
Absolutely.
collaborating for traveling professionals.
Absolutely,
Okay?
we can go ahead and do that. I would love to, Elena. It's been so wonderful, and I want to be able to, also ask you several questions on why you started the co-living space, and what your goals are in the co-living space, right? Because
Yeah.
we have a strategy that we're focused on, and which I mentioned in previous conversation with you, is like right now we're focused. We started sober living, we pivoted to traveling workers. Our
Yeah.
next goal is to, once we have a goal for traveling workers, how many properties we want to do, um, to keep going. But then we also want to be able to start working on properties, co-living properties, on supporting young adults that are aging out of the foster care
Mhm.
system. Focus on veterans, right? There's a very big need to support our veterans, and also with those that have ADA needs, right? We have seniors and others that have wheelchairs, that are blind, that
Yeah.
have some disabilities, that they need a comfortable living space for themselves and
Mhm.
be able to have a community of others to support each other as well. So
Yeah.
and eventually, we'll be going into what Pace would say our Mount Everest, which is, and are going through our peaks and all, but we want to have our commercial multifamilies that are focused on affordable housing and having those communities to help those in need and really set them up for success, right? So having mixed space where we can
Yeah.
have daycares and bodegas and affordable housing and education resources, all that for the parents to help them grow and succeed and know that there is something way much more than what they've been exposed to up till that moment. There's no limits
Yeah.
to what
This
we can do. We want to share that with everybody.
no limits if it's about co-living. No limits, no so many topics, so many different
No limit.
interesting parts of absolutely. Let's talk next time about your experience. Yeah. I'm so grateful for all this time, Lorena, you spent today with me. Thank you so much. It was great conversation. Guys,
No,
we
thank you,
still have
Elena.
probably a couple minutes left. If you have any questions to Lorena, she just shared with us her experience running sober house. So if you have any questions regarding sober house, please feel free to ask her right now. And again, thank you so much, everyone, for being part of our community. I see really bright future for our co-living community on Facebook. Let's develop it. Let's be active. Let's be proactive. Don't forget, we have chats. We have side chats where people who is looking for room always can post there about their needs. People who is looking for roommates, people who has rooms to rent, please feel free to go to your state chat or your metro area chat and post about it. And every Friday I do posts where you also can post about your needs. And please be proactive. Share with all of us your experience. Share any kind of cool news you just got. Maybe some about legal part, about how to manage property, how to be tenant in any kind of co-living space. Please share with us. We are here to support each other. Thank you
I'm
so
sure
much,
that if
Lorena.
we haven't said it, I'm sure that it's out there, right? Because there's so many different things to cover, and
Yeah.
the list is infinite. So any resources, please share and help each other. Um, One thing that I did want to say, Elena, before I leave is I want to make sure to highlight with everybody, and I know I've had this conversation with you, is we are a universe of opportunities. There's no sense of competition, right?
Yeah.
There's always an opportunity to help each other grow and build our own galaxies within this universe. So help each other and provide the resources that you can to help others reach new heights. So thank you for sharing this.
Thank you so much, Lorena, for your
Emotional.
time.
I want to help others. Big hugs,
I
big
know.
hugs.
I know.
Thank
Hugs,
you so
big
much.
hugs. Thank you. Thank you, guys. So
Thank you
meet,
all.
see you next time for our lives. And bye bye to everyone.
Bye.
Okay.